Warning, the following video contains spoilers for Episode 5 of Rings of Power. In Rings of Power Episode 5, we're introduced to the idea that Mithril, rather than just being a shiny, ultra-light and ultra-protective ore, is in fact the result of a battle between an elf and a balrog over a Silmaril atop the Misty Mountains. To the casual Tolkien fan, this could appear a perfectly plausible idea. Hell, Mithril is a shiny, ultra-powerful ore, and the Silmarils are shiny, ultra-powerful gems made by the elven smith Feanor, harbouring the light of the two trees of Valinor. Why not have the two things be related? You know, when I watched this scene, I even said aloud to myself, it's a cool idea, I guess, but Tolkien never suggested anything of the sort. Anyway, I gave it some further thought and research, and here's 5 reasons why the Silmarils and Mithril aren't actually connected as the show would suggest. The first issue I find here is the idea that a lost Silmaril wound up atop Caradhras, or another nearby peak. In my mind, there's only one even slightly plausible Silmaril this could actually be. At the end of the First Age, one Silmaril, the one born by Elendil, is placed by the Valar into the sky to become an evening star, which is a song from Lord of the Rings, and as far as anyone's concerned, it's still there. The second was last held by Maglor, one of the sons of Feanor, the guy who originally made the Silmarils. Maglor cast it into the ocean after it burned his hands too badly due to the heinous acts him and his brother Maeglos committed to obtain the Silmarils. After Morgoth was defeated, they killed a camp of innocent people to steal the recovered Silmarils. Anyway, the ocean is a long way from the Misty Mountains, which leaves us with Maeglos, who threw himself and his Silmaril into a fiery chasm after also being unable to bear holding it. Maeglos is the only Silmaril I can see being the one from this tale, but with a number of heavy caveats. How did a Silmaril go from a fiery pit, presumably housed below the Misty Mountains in this case, and rise to be contained within a tree atop them? There are a lot of gaps here, and it seems to contradict Tolkien's writings as to the ultimate fate of the Silmarils as well. Also note how Elrond mentions the last of the lost Silmarils here. What's this implying? That the others were destroyed, recovered? It's kind of confusing. Why is there a tree atop the Misty Mountains? Look, they're a cold, inhospitable landscape, probably made by Morgoth, and most notably seen in the Fellowship of the Ring, where the Fellowship literally are getting stopped by the mountain, or possibly Saruman. More to the point, where did the elf and balrog come from? Originally, I entertained the idea that the elf could actually be Maeglos himself, keeping vigil over his Silmaril in a very isolated part of the world, using the tree to house it because he himself couldn't hold it. But the problem here is the elf warrior is described by Elrond as having a heart as pure as Manwë. Okay, so if you've read the Silmarillion, you know that Manwë is the chief of the Valar. He created the Eagles and is indeed, for all intents and purposes, a pure spirit. Maeglos, on the other hand, took part in multiple kinslayings throughout the First Age, not even a slightly pure-hearted elf by the sounds. So, we have a seemingly random elf, a random tree, and a random balrog. Which leads me to my next point. A battle between a great warrior of the light and a balrog of Morgoth atop the peaks of the Misty Mountains, which comes to an end amidst a great lightning strike. Sound familiar at all? It is extremely similar to the battle between Gandalf and Durin's Bane during Lord of the Rings, so much so that I entertain the idea that this is indeed the battle mentioned, and Mithril is in fact created and then sent back through time via some wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey stuff. But this isn't Doctor Who, so I think that's unlikely. Also, are we really saying that 2 balrogs wind up fighting atop Caradhras like this? In Tolkien's later writings, he said there were only ever between 3 and at most 7 balrogs to ever exist. For 2 to wind up in the same part of the world after their defeat at the end of the First Age seems unlikely. Perhaps the most prominent point thus far, Mithril is not only found in Khazad-dûm. Whilst it may be the only known place in Middle-earth to house the precious ore, it's said that smaller deposits also existed on Numenor and Aman. That's where Valinor is. Okay, so perhaps Mithril is also left behind by the presence of the Valar. Come on, let's roll with this idea for a minute. Valinor is obviously where they live, and Numenor was raised out of the sea by Ulmo at the end of the First Age. Ulmo is also a Valar. The lightning strike over the Misty Mountains could also, let's say, be an intervention by the Valar, possibly Manwë, with the same effect. The issue I find with this idea that I've just created is something that Gil-galad says, attributing the qualities of Mithril itself to be as pure and light as good, as strong and unyielding as evil. Clearly, in this sense, Mithril is a substance generated by a unity of good and evil, which calls into questions why it also exists on Valinor and Numenor. Just one more point in defense of this idea, maybe for Valinor. The 2 trees of Valinor were devoured by Ungoliant, Shelob's mum. Giant spider, very evil. That could create a unity of good and evil, leaving deposits of Mithril under the gravesite of the 2 trees. Yeah, no, I actually don't like this idea because it suggests that Mithril would act as a taint within Valinor itself, that Mithril itself is half evil, but also good at the same time. It just sounds wrong for all sorts of reasons, and it also doesn't explain why Numenor has Mithril. So, the final point I have here, and one which, to the show's credit, actually I drew directly from there. Elrond himself says when recounting this tale of the elf and the balrog and the Silmaril that it is indeed regarded to be apocryphal, which, if you don't know what that means, I didn't. I just pictured a Daedric realm of books and eyes and tentacles. It means fictional, mythic, and most importantly, untrue. So, Tolkien didn't write it, the show itself calls into question the legitimacy of the idea. Mithril is not exclusive to Moria, the battle sounds far too similar to the one Gandalf has in the Third Age, the whole idea is far too symbolic to be realistic, and the ultimate resting places of the Silmarils don't really line up. I think it's safe to say that this story is indeed just a story, and Mithril is in no way directly connected to the Silmarils. Okay, so I was going to do a sequel video to this where I explain why this idea does work, but my best reasons were shallow, to say the least. Instead, I'm going to leave you with a little bonus of the only good point I have in favour of this that I could think of, which is the description of Mithril. As light as a feather, but hard as dragon scales. Feather, eagles, Manwë, good. Dragons, made by Morgoths, bad. It's a basic concept, but it's the only sense wherein I quite like Gil-galad's description of as pure and light as good, as strong and unyielding as evil. It fits ish kind of well, but come on, let's just go back to thinking of Mithril as a cool silvery ore and the vibranium of Tolkien's universe. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe, la-di-da-di-da-di-da. It's been almost 2 years I've been away from this channel, but I'm back. I'm back from the future. Been up to lots of other stuff, learning new skills, working, you know how it is. I can't actually pinpoint what compelled me to make this video and propel me back into content creation. Let's just say Amazon delved too greedily and too deep and awakened, well, my desire to make videos, which I suppose is a good thing, and therefore, in a roundabout way, thank you, Amazon?